All right, so we're going here. So hi, I'm Steve Hopkins. This is the PongCast. This is part of an interview series discussing table tennis with some of the best players and personalities in the sport. It is my distinct pleasure here today to welcome Sean O'Neill. He was one of the top junior players in the sport when he was 10, 11, and 12. He trained in Sweden. He had a live-in coach. He had a dominating career that culminated with 5 national singles championships and 2 Olympics. He has moved on to a productive second act in the sport as a coach, as U.S. Paralympic head coach. I think he had a National Coach of the Year award in there. He's been director of communications for USA Table Tennis and high performance director, and probably lots and lots of stuff that I'm leaving off. A Hall of Fame career, and a name that is synonymous with table tennis excellence. Sean, welcome to the PongCast.
Great to be with you, Steve.
So, Sean, one of the benefits that I have in running this show is that, I can invite whoever I want to talk to. I grew up in the sport during your era. And I say that kind of quite literally. At like age 15 was your first national championship. I was just kind of beginning to really get involved and follow every aspect of the sport. And then I think you ran off 4 of the next 6 or something along those lines. So that was just right in the middle of the time that you were dominating all of these events, and you were the big name that we were all following. So I'd like to start today by asking for some insight into some big moments in your career. So since I've just mentioned your national championships, let's start there. How about you share a favorite national story?
Okay, I'll give you maybe 3 short national stories. Each one of them had some impact. The very first nationals that I won in 1985, I ended up playing Jimmy Butler in the finals. And I was a college student at George Washington in Washington, D.C., and I didn't even think I would have any results. I went into the event really thinking that, just get through the nationals, you're doing your first semester of college, and then the cool thing would be I was going to go to Sweden and play full-time professionally in January. So my expectations were extremely low. Jimmy played his butt off. He beat Eric Bogan in the semifinals. And I just kind of, I'm not going to say lucked into the finals, but I had tough matches with Danny Seemiller and Kwang Bui in the round robin and then also in the semifinals. But I played Jimmy earlier in the tournament. And because of our age difference, there was a real big difference in our maturity level, in my experience. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I've never beaten Eric Bogan in my life. And Jimmy just took him out in the semifinals in a great 5-game match where they went backhand to backhand, tremendous rallies. And now I'm in the finals against Jimmy. I think, oh my gosh, I had no expectations. And I started off the first game up 17-13. These are the old games to 21. And I'm like thinking, how great is this? I mean, this is amazing. And he reels off 8 straight points and beats me at 17. And I'm like thinking, this is the worst thing that could ever happen. I'm in the finals. I don't even have to play Eric. And I just lost 8 points in a row to Jimmy. Luckily, Charchai Tikaverkit, who was coaching me in that particular match, he calmed me down, got me grounded in between the first and second game. And I was able to slow things down, play Jimmy a little bit more into the middle and forehand, and because of his kind of inexperience in youth, he overplayed a little bit. And that gave me enough to where I could actually squeak out the victory. But it was kind of such a shift in emotions from thinking, here's the best opportunity I've ever had, to I just blew it. And then luckily, with a good coach, I was able to regain my focus a little bit, get through the match, and then fast forward, next year, I'm now the defending champion, 1986. And who I placed in the finals? Charchai Tikaverkit, my coach from the previous year. And going into that tournament, I had come back from Sweden. I was playing full-time. 2 to 3 sessions a day, and Hank was going to school, playing maybe a week, maybe 2 hours a month. And before the nationals, we practice, and we always like to play a lot of games. Right before tournaments, it's always good to play more games, do less drills. We played 30 games right before, and I think I won all 30, and his high game was 12.
And that was you playing with Charchai, right?
Yeah, at our local club, and he wasn't even in practice. I mean, he wasn't sure where his racket was. So I'm in Sweden, I'm running, I'm having good wins, I'm like really ready for the tournament, and I'm thinking I'm going to defend my title. This is just awesome. And I'm thinking, if Hank can get to the quarters or semis, that would be a pretty good result because he's out of practice. Well, as the draw figured itself, I played Danny in the semis, got through Danny's match in a really tight, this was at the Green Tree Racket Club in Pittsburgh, so it was Danny running the event, which I don't know how anyone does that, running the event, playing the event. And then on the other side, Hank played Ricky. And Hank got through Ricky in a barely squeaked by in 5 games. And I'm like thinking, oh my gosh, this is done. I mean, I'm going to defend without any difficulty. So I think back to the previous year where I had no expectations and I won. Now I had full expectations. And I'm like thinking, this is a done deal. I mean, do we even need to play the match? Because I'm so ready. I just won 30 games in practice at home. Turns out my focus during that event was on some people talking in the upper balcony. And their conversation, I was like in it with them, explaining that, no, I'm going to win this match. You can choose where you're going to go to dinner, what you're going to do. The only thing is, Hank wasn't in that discussion. He was into playing the match, and I was focusing on outside the court. I'm up 2-0, no problem. Drop the third game. It's okay, I'm going to win. Drop the fourth game. Hey, it's no problem. I won 30 games in a row. Now I'm down in the 5th game. And I'm like thinking, what in the heck has just happened? And then I proceed to lose that 5th game. And now we've got drug testing. I'm sitting there, and neither one of us can give a sample. Hank is sitting next to me. I'm just shaking my head thinking, what in the heck just happened? I trained my butt off in Sweden. He's working on his MBA and wasn't even practicing. He knew my game. But what he did was he focused. He kept his focus every single point. Even though he was down 2-0, he played every single point. And my concentration was up in the balcony. So after that match, that was the best kick in the butt. I mean, it was just, wow. That is a painful lesson. On top of it, Danny gave beautiful trophies. So Hank's living with our family. I mean, he's a brother. Every time I have to go to get him to dinner, I go into his bedroom. I see this national men's singles trophy, and it just like every single day. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what? Okay, so got to learn a lesson there. So after that event, every single practice, every single match, every single point, I am ridiculously focused. Turns out I played Danny in the following one in 87. And I just kept saying to myself, every single point, I managed to win that match with Danny. It was deuce in the third. It was a best of 5. But at the end, I made some very strong offensive shots. And it was because for 1 year after Hank's upset of my match in Pittsburgh, I didn't let one ball, one shot, one stroke, net ball in practice, I'm on it. Lobbing, I'm fighting for it. And it reminded me that when you have expectations, or without expectations, sometimes good things can come true if you can take advantage. It also reminded me that the focus needs to be on the table and not up in the balcony. And then how you learn from those things is really what makes you a better player. And whether we have a discussion on talent versus kind of environment, I will say that experience in our sport is absolutely critical. You get a lot of opportunities to learn a ton of things. And I've just been really fortunate to have had a lot of tough matches, a lot of tough losses, a lot of great coaches. And I mean, Hank helped me in my first one. He really sent the message to me in the second one. And without that, I wouldn't have won in 87, 88, and 89, because it was those lessons right there that really made a difference in my daily training.
So do you keep up with Hank?
Yes. Unfortunately, my dad passed away last year, and he flew in from Thailand. And we're able to get together with him, and Scott Butler is another dear friend of mine, and Diana G, who kind of all grew up in that same era. So we all got a chance to see each other, and we keep in touch, whether it's through Facebook or instant messaging. But yeah, Hank is such a close part of our family that my mom and sister went to visit Thailand. I guess it was in January, right before the outbreak occurred. And he treated them to a 5-star vacation in Bangkok and also in one of the neighboring cities.
So just for curiosity's sake, what's he do now?
He manages a jewelry factory in Thailand, and he does both helping on the manufacturing and the marketing. So he'll be in Los Angeles, he might be in Europe for trade shows, but he's constantly doing custom designed jewelry, a little bit removed from table tennis, but very successful. This factory is very large and works with a family-owned business.
Oh, that's all neat. So, all right. So, I like quirky details sometimes. Almost everybody in the sport, and I've been at these finals before as people begin kind of sneaking out a little bit early. Who were the people having the conversation in the balcony that screwed up that championship for you?
The tournament director. So I listened to Danny talk about the semifinal match. And because I was in that match, it became very interesting to me. And I think he was talking to Ricky or maybe Randy. And I just kept thinking that match is over, but that's where my attention was. So
it's not uncommon at all for me to recognize a voice off in the distance and to be able to pick it out and follow exactly what they're talking about, and to really wish that I couldn't, you know? All right. So the other thing that you said you were both sitting there and you couldn't come up with a sample. Does this actually mean that at the end of the match, pro players are sitting waiting until they can pee?
Yeah. So basically, the USADA, U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, they hit the 2 finalists. They grab you with usually some type of liaison or a volunteer. You go into a predetermined room and you're dehydrated. You have no liquid in your system because you've been sweating, and a 5-gamer that goes close to the end. So we're sitting there, and we're in no rush other than it's 10:30 at night and people are waiting for you. And if you pressure yourself, that's worse. So what you do is you just start opening up, whether it's juice, apple juice, Coke, Dr. Pepper, and you're going to be drinking about probably 30 ounces. And then after you give them what they need, which is just a urine sample, you're going to be peeing all night long because you've got so much liquid in your system. If you've won, it's great. If you've lost, it's a painful thing.
Well, stuff that I guess I should have been able to figure out, but no, would have never been a detail that would have been stuck in my mind. All right, so let's skip over the last 2 nationals and let's see. How about you were in 2 Olympics, right?
Mm-hmm.
How about your favorite Olympics story?
Probably the match that I played against the defending champion in '92. His name was Yoonam Kyu from Korea, and I drew him in my round robin. And we played on the same team in Sweden. It's in Stockholm. The team is called Angby. And when he came to Angby, I was a full-time player on the same team and club. And my responsibility was to help him with English, make sure he made his bus from the family's house to practice every single day. So I was with Yoonam on a pretty regular basis. When we played in practice, I had no chance. I mean, his footwork, anyone who remembered my game, I tend to play a lot of forehands. My backhand wasn't something that I taught so much in the camps and clinics that I did. I would just basically keep it on the table. But my forehand was built on my footwork, and this guy's footwork was twice as fast as mine. As a left-handed player, we could hide the serves back then. So I couldn't see his serve. I couldn't see where he was looping his forehand. And he was already among the top I would say top 30 in the world. The previous Asian Games, he upset the Chinese in '87. And so he was already there. So when we drew each other in Barcelona, I knew he viewed that as a check-off match where he really didn't have to spend much time. He didn't have to scout me. He knew who I was. And first game, he wins pretty comfortably, probably like 21-12, 21-13. And going through the motions, he's thinking about who he's going to have to play. Is it Gatien? Is it any of these guys? And all of a sudden, at the end of the second game, and these are 2 out of 3 game matches, it's a 4-player round robin. There's one player from Hong Kong in our group who's very strong, a Cuban who we both beat. And at the end of the second game, I'm serving to him, and I decide, well, I'm going to hide my serve as well as he's hiding him to me. And I do have one heavy underspin serve that he put in the net 3 times. So now all of a sudden, it's 1 game apiece, and a lot of the fans are now watching, wait a second, what's going on here? How can this Korean be having trouble with an American? Because we are never the expected players to be winning matches at the Olympics. Hopefully that will change in the near future in the adult side. And the third game, because we both knew each other so well, and he was very serious about not wanting to like lose a match in the round robin, it literally went 1 point, 1 point, 1-1, 2-2, 3-3, 4-4, all the way up to 19 all. And now I'm thinking, I'd heard a story during the Asian Games when he won it that somebody had a heart attack in Korea watching him beat the Chinese in the Asian Games. I'm like thinking, oh no, this isn't good. If somebody's going to have a heart attack, it's because the guy's getting pushed into a later part of the game with an American, which makes no sense. And so I serve my high toss serve. He pushes it short. And right as I'm about to push it, I'm thinking, okay, I can push it short again, but he can come in and flip it to either side on toast. I could flip it, but he's got a really good loop off. So again, I can't defend that. So I decide I'm going to do the best thing I can do is I'll wait till the last second. I'll just dig it as deep as I can into his backhand because he's a left-handed pen holder. So I'm thinking, okay, this not a bad play. I do that. And he basically looks at me as I'm doing it and kind of like gives me a look like, boy, that was a foolish mistake. Steps back because he's ready for the short one, pivots, turns, takes his forehand, just rips it down the line. And I mean, it was such a blast that the ball hit the barrier before I had even stepped out. The guy was just too fast. And I knew right as I let go, that ball left my racket and I saw the look on his face that I'm maybe going to go pick up the ball because he was so quick. Didn't do anything on the last point. I think I might have missed an inconsequential shot. But afterwards, he kind of gave me like just a little bit of a head nod, like, hey, nice match, old teammate. And then I was like his biggest fan. I was cheering for him to go all the way. He did lose to Gatien in a wonderful, I think it was a 5-game match. And then Gatien made it to the finals, losing to Waldner. So it was neat because I played in the US, a lot of my teammates, like with Char Chai, and later on I played doubles with Eric, I played doubles with Danny. And playing teammates or former partners or hitting partners, the game is never as you expect because everyone knows what you're doing. So you've got to get into a little bit more of a tactical mindset, kind of read the situation a little bit. And in that situation, I had never had anyone hit the ball so hard past me at such a critical point. And it was a friendship I kept up with him. Kim Taek-soo was another one of his teammates that I had a chance to work with who came to Sweden. But it was always a thrill. The Koreans have such great footwork, so I'm always in awe of them. Such hard workers. And when you watch the Olympics, it's one thing you can expect is that the Koreans will always go there thinking not only to win a medal, but to challenge the Chinese.
All right, so I don't know. We're 17 minutes or so in. I'm going to ask you for one more. So you had mentioned when I was kind of prepping you for this that you had one good doubles story. So let's bring it down from lofty Olympic stuff and talk doubles to close things out.
Okay, so a lot of double stories I won't mention. When I was playing mixed doubles with Diana G in Cuba, in Havana for a gold medal, and I missed my serve 2 or 3 times in a row because of the humidity. It was so wet, it was like 110 degrees. and literally the ball was stuck to my hand. I'm not going to mention that one, but we had a doubles trials, and I was playing with Tal Leibovitz, one of my closest friends, students, and we thought it would be a good idea so that he could get some coaching during the play, because I was always coaching him in matches, but we felt like, well, doubles would be good leading into Athens. So we played doubles, and we were in DC, and it was just the US qualifier to compete against North America. And the challenge was we were one match away from qualifying for the next stage. And I've never seen somebody so excited. He was literally calling everyone up in New York on a cell phone saying, I'm one match away, I'm one match away. And I'm like, what are you doing? We got to focus. And he's like, okay, that's right, I got to focus. And then he went out the door. I didn't see him for like 20 minutes. And we're going to play in 30. And then he comes in all sweaty. And I'm like, what happened? He goes, oh, I just ran a couple miles. I'm like, you just ran a couple miles? Why would you do that? He's like, to get ready for the match. And I was like, who does that? I mean, he's never been in that situation. So we go out and play. And remember, he's a Paralympic player for a reason. He has less range of motion, joint, and muscle and other issues going on. Game 3, he locks up. He literally cramps his whole body. Why? Because he just ran 3 miles before this pivotal match to qualify to go to Canada or to play against the Canadian teams. And we're playing Adam Hugh and Han Shao, who are 2 members of the national team. I'm already retired. Like, this is 2004. I retired in 96. He's fighting in class 9 in the Paralympics, so we have no business being this match. But what we do have is really good focus. We play every single point like it's our last point. And somehow, with him pushing and blocking and me scrambling all over the place, we managed to win the match. And it was, again, 12-10, 5th game, by the narrowest of margins. And afterwards, I just said, next time, just leave the running. We don't need to do that. That's not something that any of the pro players do. So if you can manage when we go to Athens, he then won a bronze medal in Athens, and seeing the US flag go up on the podium as they were delivering the medals, it was such a wonderful feeling. But I will never forget when I asked him where he was, and he said, I went out for a run. And it's okay, some jogging, a little bit of stretching, but I mean, literally, he did a sprint for 3 miles and came in.
All right, but you're picking on him. It worked, right? You admit it worked?
Well, the fact that we had to take an injury timeout while he laid in like an iron cross, and for the rest of the match, he literally had a push that was like 3 inches long. And if I ran into him, he couldn't move out of the way. So, but it was a great feeling. And I think that by going through that, the trust that we developed for each other, knowing that we would do whatever it took to come through, I think makes the biggest difference. I think the coach-player relationship is huge. And when you have more experiences, that makes you just a better team, even though one player is not on the court at a time.
All right, so that's probably a good place to stop here today. We should try this again sometime. I'm sure you have a whole big stack of stories, and we can run through some of those at some future episode if you'd like. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat today. I think others are really going to enjoy listening to. And just, I don't know. Thanks for joining PongCast. We'll do it again.
No, it's my pleasure, and I think it's wonderful. Send out the best wishes to helping all the clubs get back in gear once everything is lifted, and please stay safe. And hopefully we'll all get together at the Nationals in Las Vegas in December.
Thanks a lot, Sean.